When Sesame Street's Elmo is getting vaccinated on television, has entertainment become propaganda? We're going to answer that today. Today's episode is brought to you by the letters P and Pfizer. Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right now and turn that notification bell on, please. We need you to know about our daily videos because sometimes there are algorithmic censorship things afoot and we need you on our side. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right now. Let me tell you, powerful interests are at work. And you can see those powerful interests playing out on Sesame Street.
Now Daddy has super duper bandages just like Elmo.
You were super duper today, getting your COVID vaccine, Elmo.
Yeah, there was a little pinch, but it was okay.
Is Elmo gonna get COVID? I mean, isn't he like made out of fabric?
Elmo was really glad to have Daddy and Baby David there with him. Baby David, where are you?
I had a lot of questions about Elmo getting the COVID vaccine.
That bit's actually talking to adults, isn't it? Because a child isn't in that position. Child's like, we're going to doctors, you're getting this thing, we'll tell you about it on the way home. That bit that's manipulating an adult.
I learned that Elmo getting vaccinated is the best way to keep himself, our friends, neighbors, and everyone else healthy and enjoying the things they love.
If you're taking your advice from this, like, I think it's all right when they're trying to teach you the alphabet and the 1, 2, 3, all that was good. But when it starts getting into complex territory that involves the power of the state, the influence of pharmaceutical companies, the impact of coronavirus on young children, these are not issues I want resolved by members of Elmo's fucking family. I'm going to take Mr. Snuffleupagus' advice on gun control, Big Bird on polygamy. You can't have that conversation at the level of puppetry unless the entire media's puppets, man. Puppets of the pharmaceutical industry.
Elmo and Baby David have a question. Can we have a hug?
Oh, come here, son.
We've had an interesting 2 to 3 year journey around coronavirus. New information has come to light. The involvement of pharmaceutical companies, the efficacy of lockdowns, the controversies around the anti-vax movement, the blaming of people that haven't been vaccinated, the conversation about natural immunity, the complexity of allowing companies like Pfizer and Moderna to get such profits when they have such colourful, indeed checkered histories. This is a difficult, complex conversation that should be carried out between medical professionals and individuals, families and communities, and of course Elmo.
Elmo loves you, Daddy.
I love you too.
One of the unfortunate things about this story is I find myself agreeing, at least temporarily, with Senator Ted Cruz, who to me looks like he could be on Sesame Street as that vampire doing the counting.
1 bet. 2 bets.
Senator Ted Cruz shared the clip on Twitter and blasted the popular PBS HBO children's show for allowing Elmo to aggressively advocate for vaccinating children under 5. He added, "You cite zero scientific evidence for this." The internet was quickly filled with comments on Cruz versus Elmo. Now there's a UFC bout I'd like to see. With one person tweeting, "I'm here for the right-wing meltdown because a puppet got vaccinated." Is it a right-wing meltdown? I'm not right-wing, and I'm not having a meltdown about it either. This is what I'm saying, is have they become so desperate to indoctrinate that they're willing to infiltrate the world of puppets in order to convey messages about a decision that I think is as yet not totally underwritten with scientific data? Cruz, along with other Republicans, was seeking more answers from the government before the authorization of the vaccines for children in this age group. The Centers for Disease Control said in announcing its recommendation that the child vaccines have undergone the most intensive safety monitoring in US history. Have they? Are you sure about that? This isn't the first time Cruz has had a run-in with a high-profile Sesame Street star. That's odd, isn't it? You wouldn't want more than one in your life just because it would look stupid in an autobiography. Then the next year I got involved in another spat with another Sesame Street star. Then the next year after that I punched Kermit the Frog in his dick. But why trust old Russ, a right-wing conspiracy theorist with skin in the game, making profit in every direction from various anti-vaccine interests? Let's instead look at what that other conspiracy theorist, Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, said in that conspiratorial rag, Newsweek. 2 weeks ago, with no outcomes data on COVID-19 booster shots for 5 to 11-year-olds, the Centers for Disease Control vigorously recommended the booster for all 24 million children in that age group. No outcomes data. Contrast the sentence. The CDC say the most intensive safety monitoring in US history. Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, says no outcomes data on COVID-19 booster shots from 5 to 11-year-olds. The CDC cited a small Pfizer study of 140 children that showed boosters elevated their antibody levels, an outcome known to be transitory. A small study of 140 children. Is there any other motivation, though, for wanting kids to take a medicine that costs money when you're a company that needs to make money? Nothing. I've got nothing. When that study concluded, a Pfizer spokesperson said it did not determine the efficacy of the booster in the 5 to 11-year-olds. But that didn't matter to the CDC, who put the matter before its own kangaroo court of curated experts, the Advisory Committee on Immunisation Practices. Committee members emphasised the importance of a universal booster message that applies to all age groups. Dr. David Kimberlin, editor of the American Academy of Pediatrics Red Book, speaking on his own behalf, said, Americans are yearning for, are crying out for, a simpler way for looking at this pandemic. He suggested that not recommending boosters for young children would create confusion that could also bleed over to 12 to 17-year-olds and even the adult population. Oh, it's so confusing, isn't it? We might as well just get everyone vaccinated. Why don't we just vaccinate chairs and tables and mice and trees and old clocks and little jars full of orphans' tears? If you see something, vaccinate. We can't have people getting confused, can we? How about an adult conversation with, for example, Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, rather than a conversation with Elmo? Exhibiting classic medical paternalism, committee member Dr. Oliver Brooks of the Watts Healthcare Corporation said, I think may is confusing and may sow doubt. God, what kind of idiot would get confused about the difference between may and should?
There's a difference between states that say may and they say shall.
Adding, if we say should, more people will get boosted versus may. We may have more data that helps us really define where we're going. Dr. Brooks was essentially suggesting that boosting in this age group would be a clinical trial conducted without informed consent. That is what he's saying. Sometimes you need the rational voice of a more morally inclined physician to help you to understand that this territory of science, which seems sometimes so opaque, they're experts, you can trust them, they're experts. Shut up, do what you're told. Elmo's an expert now. It requires another, more morally straight physician to say, listen, what's being suggested here is a clinical trial without informed consent. That doesn't sound like following the science to me. The committee promptly approved the booster for young children by an 11-1 vote. The one dissenting voice came from Dr. Kate Talbot of Vanderbilt University, who courageously said vaccines, while extremely effective, are not without their potential side effects. So this is not an anti-vaccine group by any stretch of the imagination. And even the person that voted against it is a pro-vaccine person. So you want opinions from across the spectrum. You don't want to only listen to people that are so vehemently opposed to corporations, big business, the government, people like me essentially. You want a variety of opinions from informed people, and then a conversation, then a debate, and then consensus to be reached. But you want to be part of that conversation. You want access to all the information, and you want it to be pointed out to you when something has been described as having had the most intensive safety monitoring in US history. You want to be sure that that is the case and that it's not a clinical trial conducted without informed consent. There's some distance between those two realms. She questioned the sustainability of vaccinating the population every 6 months. I can think of some interests that might benefit. Many experts agree with her, but they don't have a platform to speak. In fact, nearly 40% of rural parents say their paediatricians do not recommend the primary vaccine series for children. Those paediatricians were not represented on the committee. Things are presented as truth, but it's curated truth. You are given information that has already been pre-chewed and it's spat in your face like a bird, a baby bird, not even big bird. Most remarkably, it didn't seem to matter to the CDC that 75.2% of children under the age of 11 already have natural immunity. That seems like a significant factor, doesn't it? According to a CDC study that was concluded in February, the same body conducted that study. Natural immunity is certainly much more prevalent today given the ubiquity of the Omicron variant since February. CDC data from New York and California demonstrated that natural immunity was 2.8 times more effective in preventing hospitalization and 3.3 to 4.7 times more effective in preventing preventing COVID infection compared to vaccination during the Delta wave. These findings are consistent with dozens of other clinical studies, yet natural immunity has consistently and inexplicably been dismissed by the medical establishment. Instead of pushing boosters on healthy children who are already immune, public officials should focus on recommending the primary COVID vaccine series to high-risk children who don't have any immunity. So Marty Makary is hardly an anti-vaxxer. Marty Makary is saying that vaccines ought to be focused on at-risk children rather than ubiquitously recommended. But forget Marty Makary. Let's get back to what Elmo's dad says.
I had a lot of questions about Elmo getting the COVID vaccine.
You're damn right there's questions. Of course there are bloody questions. There are questions about the way that PBS is funded and whether or not PBS's funding could ever be at threat if they didn't follow certain government edicts. There are questions about the efficacy of the vaccine in that age group or the necessity for vaccines in that age group. There are all the points brilliantly raised by Marty Makary are worthy questions.
I learned that Elmo getting vaccinated is the best way to keep himself, our friends, neighbors, and everyone else healthy and enjoying the things they love.
I like Sesame Street. I've got nothing against Sesame Street, but this seems to me like another example of the complex issues that coalesce around coronavirus and the treatments of coronavirus and the political responses, the sociological responses, that is reductive and simplistic. And just because there's like cuddly puppets involved with band-aids on, it doesn't make me feel any more assured. It's another example of a reductivist and propagandist approach to an issue that requires consideration, openness and transparency. Elmo's dad, let me know what you think. And all of you, let me know what you think in the comments as well. Give this video a thumbs up, share it around. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at that one I referred to earlier or have a look at that one. Please sign up to our mailing list where I'll tell you about weekly live events and online events. We do stuff every single week and we talk about stuff we wouldn't be able to talk about on this platform. So please stay connected to us and more important than that, please stay free.